God cannot do does not exist. What God cannot do does not exist. I, the woman God has shown mercy, has come back to thank Elroy for his kindness and his mercy to me. My name is Afyong. I'm giving my testimony from Lagos, Nigeria. Sometime in 2021, I became really ill, and when I went into hospital, I was diagnosed with Graves' disease. There began my journey of dealing with hyperthyroidism. I went through a series of tests, periodic testing. Along the line, I started to be diagnosed with so many other ailments. It was as though each time I went into hospital for my checks, I would come back with another report of even a more complicated diagnosis. I had diagnoses such as being pre-diabetic, being disposed to kidney issues, having gouts, high protein issues. I was just having so many diagnoses that became really disturbing and scary. So I decided to come back to NSPPD. Before this time, my mom had suggested NSPPD to me, which I tried joining, but of course I had given up on it with the excuse that it was too loud and I couldn't cope. But at that point I didn't have a choice, and I really needed God's help. I listened to testimonies that shook my heart, that I felt were incredulous, but again I had made up my mind that there's nothing God couldn't do, and as such these things were things that he was capable of. I remained on the altar. And then subsequently, I started to hear, as time went on, I started to hear Pastor Jerry talk about autoimmune issues. He called different autoimmune ailments, and then he would constantly pray about autoimmune diseases being healed. He would talk about creative miracles, and I would just came. Along the line, he would sometimes go very specific to talk about hyperthyroidism. He would mention hypothyroidism. He mentioned even Hashimoto's. And I was like, God, all these are autoimmune diseases that you're healing. I came to it. And I said that, God, you see, please help me. Give me my own specific word. I do not want to be confused. That when I first went into the hospital, the first doctor that I met had said I was suffering with Graves' disease. Please call it Graves, because by this time I was, moving on the spectrum between hyperthyroidism and hypothyroidism. So sometimes I didn't even know where on that scale I was. So I then said to God, I do not want to be confused. I want to key in and receive my testimonies. Please put it in the mouth of your prophets to call it Graves' disease, so that I will be very sure. Within the week of that prayer, I was on my morning walk and I heard Pastor Jerry calling Graves' disease. It took a while for me to connect, realize that, oh my goodness, he's talking about Graves' disease.
Graves' disease, I announce, let it be reversed.
I claim it from that point on, it became a downhill journey for Graves' disease in my life. The last result I had was so good. And then subsequently, I went on for several tests and it has all come back wonderful. I have come back to return all the glory to Elroy, the God that has seen me. Thank you, Pastor Jerry, for all your consistent sacrifice of love. God bless you and reward you abundantly.
NSPPD, celebrate our God! Celebrate! Celebrate!